Hello, I'm Super Orange Cat, and here I am reviewing South Park Season 3, Episode 7, entitled Bored Girls. Let me first go over some of the stuff I really loved about this episode. One thing in particular I loved was how in the A plot you had strong woman competing in a strong woman contest, and how to have the transgender opponent be someone who's a lookalike of Macho Man Randy Savage, pointing fun at the whole the Macho Man thing, how Macho Man like he's a macho man, but he's pretending to be a woman for this competition, pointing out the irony in it, pointing out how under many current rules of joining women's sports, you could be a man, but just say, "Oh, I'm a woman," and you technically can compete, and pointing out how biologically born males have an unnatural advantage above females in sports, which that generally pointed out. And also, that is something that's pretty relevant today. If you watch, especially like in high school sports, you have these cases where you have transgender athletes thoroughly outperforming female athletes, and many female athletes starting to claim that it's not fair. And I like how this episode addressed that because it's interesting, especially how that affected the PC family in the show, and how to have them come to terms with how the PC-ness has gone against them for a change. And I really love how this episode really went out and flushed their characters out. The PC principal finally standing like, "Hey, like I'm fine with transgender people, but you're a dick and you should go f off," like stuff like that, and how he shoved her, and how Lim just literally just shoving her was like this whole, "Oh no, this is the end of the world. I can't believe I shoved a transgender person. My children are gonna hate me." And then how it ended where the children are fine because like they're starting to grow up and they're understanding how issues like that do have nuance. And that's something I really love how the show did. And also I loved kind of how they flipped it with regards to the whole board games. How it was like how the A plot is about how males have a natural advantage above females in sports. It's about, oh, girls have an advantage above boys in board games because girls actually spend the time to read all the rules and better understand the game. But albeit, I can definitely understand why this was the B plot instead of the A plot. I think as a whole, this was a weaker plot, and there really wasn't that much to it because it really just felt like the normal story beats you would get in the South Park episode. The boys are doing something, something happens, Cartman objects to it, he pulls Butters and Scott Mackelson and I have diabetes along, and he makes them complain about it. And like this is like the fifth time he's come up to Congress about something. And the scene that goes almost nowhere, except for the only joke I really liked was the whole part where he made Scott Mackelson say he had terminal diabetes, which I don't think it's a reference to, but it reminds me a lot of the whole episode way back when where how he had him speak to Congress about stem cell research and how he swayed them by singing "Heat of the Moment" by Asia. And also, I think at the end of that scene where he's like, "Oh, if you don't separate this by gender, we're going to be here every day," which this is a bit of a stretch maybe, but I think it's an indirect reference to the whole climate change Fridays movement where there's a bunch of people who are like, "Oh, every Friday we're going to be out in the Capitol protesting climate change until you do something about it." And they capitulate and kind of have the ironic twist that, oh, it turns out every single girl in the school wants board games. I kind of like how not only was it like, oh, there's all these girls, but how like advanced and developed this was. Like they had all these stations of all these games, had their own YouTube channel about this, and they're getting advanced copies of games too. I thought that was pretty interesting. Although it was pretty predictable if you've watched any South Park plotline, you should tend to know that 90% of the time it ends up blowing up in Cartman's face, which it does here. But I do like the ending where the girls beat the Macho Man Randy Savage knockoff, who happened to be Strong Woman's ex-boyfriend in board games, and how he and Cartman just kind of left together, which raises some speculation of, oh, is I forgot his name. It's something Jagger, but let's say Heather Swanson, he's still going by Heather Swanson, and Cartman, what are they going to do? What, like, club are they going to try to create? Which is something interesting because there's still 3 episodes left this season. It'd be interesting to see where the show takes that. Now to go into some of the stuff I really didn't like about the episode. Again, I pointed out the B plot it was very by the numbers, although it definitely had its moments. I'll give it that. And that's really it. Like, this was another pretty solid episode. I wouldn't consider this as good as, like, Abandoned China or a Shots, but at the same time, this was a nice, solid episode, and there's still lingering plot lines here, and I'm interested to see how South Park will continue on with them. And this is the first episode, I think, all season that didn't even mention Tegrity Farms. So, knowing logic, that means next episode will be all about Tegrity Farms. It'll be interesting to see what the show goes from here. However, we do have a week off next week, so it'll be the second Wednesday from now is when we're gonna have episode 8 come out. I'm interested to see what it's about. What about you guys? What were your opinions about this episode? Leave your comments down below. I love reading them. If you like this, if you want more South Park quick review content like this, please subscribe, hit that notification button. I'm Super Orange Cat, and that is all.